So thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate spending time with me for the next little bit and talking about internet safety. I know it's not always the most sexy topic we want to talk about, but it is something that's going to, I feel, is very valuable. And my name is Heather Askea, and I work at the University of Virginia's College at Wise Center for Teaching Excellence. And my role for the past 11 years now has been to help teachers with online classes. So we support about 3,000, well, actually this year, closer to 4,000 teachers across the state of Virginia taking online classes to get their license or to meet their certification plans. And we also work with I have 56 adjuncts that are in my department. We're actually the largest non-department at the college. We're not actually the official department, but we have the largest group of teachers that are working together, and they're actually spread out across the country. We actually have a couple of them that are in Texas that teach for us that actually started here in Virginia but have moved. And the wonderful part about the internet is that it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you have connectivity, that you can be a part of a global market. We have a lot of teachers. We've got several that teach for us in Virginia Beach, and they're kind of becoming all scattered across the state. But we still have our core group here in Wise and around Region 7. I do want to talk a lot about internet safety, but we have to kind of start where we are. So today, more than ever, we're online. Our lives are online. We're learning online. This past year, for sure, has been, I mean, have you ever thought, think about your life, would you have ever thought that we would have went through a year like we went through this past year? Just couldn't fathom it. I'm a proponent of online learning. I love to see expanded learning opportunities, but I would always be the first to tell you online learning is not a cure-all. It is not for everyone. It is there. It's a wonderful tool. It can connect us to the world, but it should not be applied across the board. Well, March of 2020, we didn't have a choice, and everybody went home. And I remember sitting there at the college. Our kids were on spring break, and it was business as usual at the CTE because we go have a different semester time, but we were just rolling through our regular semester online like we normally do. And the chancellor calls us in and says, "Okay, we're gonna flip all face-to-face instruction is gonna flip this week to online." And I thought, okay, we're good, we're golden. And she said, "Okay, you're gonna have to come over and help the on-campus people do that." Many of the on-campus instructors were instructors that I had when I was at UVA-Wise as a student. And I've been out more years than I want to admit. So I thought, well, okay. I knew there was pockets of people who were doing it, and they were doing some very proactive things. And so they were helping, they were leading parts of it. And CTE just went in and tried to do our part to try to move instruction online. To say it was easy, this would be a lie. It was not easy, but we worked hard. And I will say that every instructor did the absolute best they could. And I saw that repeated school after school after school. Teachers trying their absolute best, administrators trying their absolute best to do what was right for kids. And then I saw businesses start pivoting and trying to stay afloat and trying to stay alive during this time and trying to provide services to their neighbors during a time. I mean, I think about how some of our businesses would never have progressed as much as they have this year had we not had this catastrophe. And I think if you can find a silver lining in any of it, certainly it's been a traumatic year, but if you can find any silver lining, it has been that we have taken hold of the technology. It's always been out there. It's always been optional. It's always we could participate if we wanted to. But all of a sudden, DMV's online, your bank's online, your medical. Whoever thought they'd ever go to the doctor online? Actually, sometimes I prefer it because I don't want to get on that scale. And if I could just sit on the back of that scale, my doctor asks me how much weight I've gained. It's like, it's pretty good. Just that 1 foot on there. But the nice thing is it also allowed us to connect with people who were not in our region. My husband has an arthritic condition, and we have to travel to Wake Forest. We've been to different hospitals at Wake Forest where we have settled. And so we were traveling there probably once every month. And that's not a tremendous far away, but it's a whole day's journey. And if he's got a late appointment or an early appointment, sometimes an overnight. I apologize. Technology Gets us every time. And so being able to do some of those appointments virtually really helped us and saved us a lot of travel, and helped us avoid hotspots we would have traveled through during that time. So we're doing all these things. We're learning, we're working, we're living more and more online. And so the internet has always been there. Well, it's not always been there, but it's been there for many, many decades now in different formats. And the beginning of the internet was the Internet of Things. It was files, it was web pages, it was static things that were out there. We could find files, we could find music, we could find some images, we could find things, and it was really cool. And you can still do all that. But the internet of probably the last 10 or so years has really evolved into, you hear the term, Sonia has heard this term, the web 2.0. I think we're probably on 3.0, 4.0 right now. I don't know which level we're at now. But what that means is the internet of doing. It was not about you going and being a consumer of information, but about you being a producer of information, a producer of content, about you collaborating with other people. Gaming online has, do any of you are gamers in here?
I left one.
I
left one.
Okay.
Gladly.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, I started sometime in the year, I don't know what year it came out, but I started playing Candy Crush I don't know what year it came out. Don't do it. Just stay away from it. Live your life. You got more things to do.
Oh, he's got a serious
addiction. I'm like on level 4,800 something. I thought there would be 100 levels and I'd be done. And that's been 10 years ago, I think now. I don't play this all the time. It's just one of those kind of in between things, in line when I'm waiting for things, when I'm waiting in my car for, to go in somewhere. But gaming has become, it's not just a place to kind of go and veg. It's become social. It can be any of these things, anything you can turn into an addiction. But we're also socializing online. We're collaborating. We're buying and selling. It's become how many of you bought things during the pandemic online? Well, yeah. Amazon made so many trips to my house that I was questioning whether I was buying the things or if someone had hacked my account. They were sending them all to my house, but surely I was not purchasing all these things. I soon realized my husband and I were using the same Amazon account, and he had decided he needed some things. So we started meeting. We didn't talk to each other about when things were coming or when we were ordering things. So he would place an order. I would place an order. He would place an order. I'd place an order. So every day, our poor FedEx and the UPS guy was showing up every day in our house. It got a little bit crazy. We got it together now. We're pretty good. And the internet is also a place to promote. And you guys know, if you've been on any social media, it is a place to promote just about anything. So when we're out here, we're consuming all of this information. We're participating in all this information. We're doing and we're seeing and we're getting all this information. Unfortunately, we're not the only ones out there. And our best intentions sometimes are opportunities for nefarious people. So this kind of shocked me because I knew I have had lots of conversations with teenagers, with adults about harassment online. But one of the latest Pew Research studies said that 41% of all users online have experienced harassment. And what was interesting is, 4 in 10 American adults have been harassed. And when you look at 64% of those people, 64% of those online under 30 have experienced harassment issues online. That could be just repeated messages. It could be taking of your content using in bad ways. It could be all sorts of different kinds of harassment, all the way up into stalking. And 48% say they've experienced at least one or more severe types of harassment. So that's astounding. And as a stepmom to a teenage daughter who has experienced some of this, my first question to her was, just turn it off. Just unplug it. And she said, you don't understand. When I go back, It's there, and it's worse. And so the answer isn't always just unplug, walk away. Sometimes you have to really be smart about what you're sharing and be proactive. So this right here is some of the biggest crime statistics. 9% of people aged 16 and older have been victims of identity theft. You're thinking, well, 9%. That's 9% of our population. Now think about that number. We're in the how many billions this now? I think it's less. So, and for 90% of those of identity theft, the most recent involved only misuse of an account. It could be their Amazon account, it could be their credit card account, it could be their bank account, it could be their email account, and the monetary losses totaled over $15 billion in 2018 alone. And that's the last year that's the last year I could find a solid statistic, because it changes. Now, $15 billion. Okay, much of that was settled by insurance claims and insurance that companies have. Credit card companies all cover, most of them all cover. And if you don't have a credit card that covers identity theft and online fraud, you need to get a new credit card company. But if your bank doesn't help you, doesn't cover you when something happens, when someone's hacked your account. I suffer through some things I don't like at my bank currently because they had my back a few years ago, and something was put back in my account that was taken out it was an Amazon breach that was taken out of my account, and within 24 hours the money was back in my account. And because of that alone, and anytime I've called them, they take care of me. So I'll deal with extra fees. I'll deal with a few hard to get a hold of people if I can deal with that, because I have an app. I can cut my card off anytime, and I have an app that I can report by any stuff, anything, and I can freeze my card anytime too. That's, I've got a lot of control. Among victims who resolved the financial and credit problems, now that's among the ones who did. We don't know that number. More than half did it in one day or less, and that's due primarily to those companies that have those policies that put the money back, or they take care of it, or they have insurance that covers those types of things. But not everybody gets their money back, because the money doesn't come back from the criminal most of the time. Most of the time, it's an insurance policy that takes care of it. And this is the thing that hurts the most. The people who are most targeted are children, senior citizens, and our military. And you think, why the military? Military are typically away from many months, or in different states. Some of them are stationed in areas, but their home states or their base states are somewhere else. And they have mail that arrives at home. They have accounts that they don't check regularly. They have social media. Case in point, I ran into a situation where someone contacted me online claiming to be someone from fairly local. It's a military guy. And the message just didn't add up. There were some things in it that just, the language was off, because let's just face it, our mountain fellas don't talk this way. And they certainly don't type this way. And I thought, this person doesn't speak English. This is someone who's translating. And so I did answer back just because I was curious. And I said, what part of Nigeria are you from? And he said, I'm not from Nigeria. I said, okay, what part of the Ukraine? Because a lot, now not all, unfortunately, hacking and phishing scams are global. But we do have there are lots of people, there's lots of scams that come out of Nigeria, a lot of towards the southern part of Africa, a lot of the Eastern Bloc in Russia. You get a lot of scams there. There's different upticks in different parts of the areas depending on the time, different times and people that are targeted. But that's this poor guy had his identity stolen, and it was sold to a group out of because I tracked it down because I was so curious about this, because his name was I thought, that name is so familiar. Why is that name familiar? And so I started doing a little research, found out his identity had been stolen. Even pictures off his Facebook account had been recreated or had been used to recreate other profiles. And he had a daughter. And so he was stationed in the middle of a war zone somewhere and wasn't checking any of these things. and had no idea what's going on. It was a tremendous deal. And thankfully I saw that and thought, this doesn't look right. But had my spidey senses not gone off, I might have been tempted to say something that would have given away information. But it's easier than you think, because a lot of times I would always say, no way I would give anybody that kind of information. Why would you ever? But people call and they ask you just the right conversation. They know the right questions to ask, or they'll send you an email that looks like something legit, and you think, oh, that's something I need to take care of. I need to take care of that. And before you know it, you've given away the farm, because before you didn't realize it. So why is it increasing? And we know it's increasing. It's getting worse and worse. We just have more and more information stored online. I mean, we think about if you are a valid health user, in this area, all our records are stored through the EPIC system. If you attend a university, every university has online student records. And of course, they're all behind huge firewalls, and we have a whole department devoted to protecting them. But data breaches still can happen. All your school systems have records. So your banking records, everything is stored online. And it makes it so convenient, because I don't remember that new prescription the doctor gave me. So what do? Look it up in the app, because I have it right here in my hand. This is the most widely used internet connected device in the world. More than any computer, your phones are connected. And most of your phones are as powerful, or if not more powerful, than any PC. Any smartphone nowadays, it's amazing the technology that you can do and what you have the power. The fact that I bought this phone the other day, and I thought, man, I really didn't. I thought, I don't really pay attention a whole lot. I don't take a lot of pictures, but I thought, well, I kind of do. So, I'm a little bit nerdy, so I like to have a nice camera on my phone, And I thought, man, I bought a Nikon camera like 4 years ago that was, I want to say, 16 or 21 megapixels. And I thought, that's great. My phone here has 48 megapixels and is much more sharp than my really expensive camera that I bought a few years ago. Now I still prefer that camera for some other reasons, but the fact that these are, and it's not the high-end ones that are this powerful. I mean, you can get ones that are, fairly cheap and have access to all kinds of information. There's more sophisticated phishing. We're going to talk about phishing in a minute, and malware attacks. And we now have this horrible trend right now of ransomware attacks that hit big businesses. They hit school divisions, unfortunately. I know Smith County got hit year before last, and thankfully their tech director was one of the few in the region at the time who looked out ahead and saw what was happening in other parts of the country, because we'd already heard that a hospital system in California had been hit with ransomware. And what ransomware is that a hacker will hack into a system, and they'll lock you out of your system, even the system administrator, and they'll hold your information ransom until you give them what they want. A lot of times it's Bitcoin, it's some sort of online currency that you can't trace, and then they'll release your information back. What we don't know is when they have your information, how much of it they've taken out. And they may not access it now. They may put it aside and think, I might need that later. Just download a copy of it. I'll need that later. And so a lot of times, now there's a whole industry now around insurance that covers school divisions to help take care of that. Well, any business can get this insurance. But the Smith County Tech Director was one of the few in the region who thought far enough ahead to think, we might need to invest in that and use some of the monies the federal monies that were allowed for that to cover that. And when they got hit with their ransomware attack, they were down for a day and a half, rather than trying to be down for a week or a month trying to recoup, because Terry, he backs everything up daily. And so they had everything backed up and they were ready to go. So but you got to be prepared for those things. Unfortunately, it's increasing because it's easy to do. Like I said, all you have to have is an internet connection. And you can go to the McDonald's and get an internet connection, and you have to have a device. And like I said, it's not easy to hack with a phone, but you can. But you can go to any Walmart and buy a $100 Chromebook or $200 Chromebook, and you've got computing power to be able to hack into some of if you've got the skills, then you can hack into some of the most encrypted sites online. And unfortunately, it's easy to get away with because, again, the anonymity of the internet and the vastness of the World Wide Web provides a lot of places to hide. And again, ubiquitous use of tools makes us less vigilant, makes us a little bit lazy about our security. I'm terrible about, I'll stay signed in. I'll say, when I'm at work, my computer locks me out after so many minutes, if I'm not active, and that's a good thing. But when I'm at home, I don't think anybody's going to be there running around, but it's not necessarily what I'm doing or somebody in my house doing something, coming in and taking some information. It's somebody else sitting down and thinking, oh, I need to look up this recipe. And they sit down and look up a recipe on a site that's not secure, but I'm on a site, I already have something on my computer that is secure, connected to my schoolwork, my data at school. They download something they don't intend to download, which is a virus or a key tracker. And before you know it, I've given away someone's tracked my passwords to get into my most sensitive accounts. And that's as simple as it can happen. Not anybody trying to be ugly about it. It's just that they go to a site that wasn't reputable, maybe download a file or whatever, and before you know it, you're infected. So what can we do to be more safe online? So number one, this is, I know this one seems pretty elementary, but before I worked at the CTE, I worked in a school system for many years, and I was an instructional technology resource teacher. And I would go from classroom to classroom, helping teachers implement technology in their classroom and helping them make sure everything worked. And I can't tell you the times, and I still see this occasionally when I get to visit schools. Those little Post-it notes stuck all around it's probably right here on your computer right here. It says username and password. Well, in a setting like this, when these computers are taken care of in a special way, so this is okay, because they account for, at the end of the day, everything's wiped, and they understand, they take care of it. That's the way it's designed. But for most people, your computer networks are not designed to do that. It's not designed to have your username, password plastered on a Post-it note right there as you log in. Now, if you're like me, I can't remember. It's hard for me to remember passwords, but I think this is really funny. I found this on one of the Norton sites that said that most people would let you borrow their car before they would give you your email password. And you know why that is? If you think about what your email, how much power your email password has. How many do you online bank? You do have online accounts and you access your bank. Okay, how do you reset your password for your bank? How do you reset your password for your bank? It goes to your email. Okay, if I have your email password, I can go and reset your password for your bank and lock you out of your bank account. Yeah. I wouldn't do that to you, but I could. And someone standing beside you who sees your email address and happens to see your password there, not everybody's, we like to think everybody's really good. And I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's really good. But sometimes we find some bad apples. It happens. Okay, what else? What's your credit card? Yeah, your credit card's similar to your bank. What about your medical records online? It could lock you out of your medical records or change something, request a prescription in your name. They can go in and change the pharmacy to have that prescription sent to, because all that can be done through the app in most cases. There's a lot of things that we don't even think about. What about taking out credit in your name? If I have your email password, all it takes is authentication. That's what any site that asks you to authenticate by email is going to, so that means I can apply for credit. I can have a good old time. I can go buy all kinds of things about your email password, because I can apply for credit. And when they send that little email saying, is this you? Well, yes, it is. Because not everybody checks their email all the time. And then you're looking at it like, when the payment comes due, that person's probably long gone, enjoying the car they just bought in your name. Or crazy enough, my best friend's husband, he kept getting these requests from this college in Georgia about his student loans being due. He was like, I've never even been to that part of Georgia. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you took classes with us here in this year and you didn't pay these back, and they're asking to be recouped. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So he had his email hacked, and they had applied for and received admission to the college, had done all these things, and it took them about 3 years to clear that. And the cops in Georgia and the cops in Virginia both said, because it crossed state lines, it gets really complicated. And we still don't know who it was and what happened, what caused it. All right, so don't leave your webcam connected. Okay, so we have this lovely, for those of you who are at home, hopefully you're not looking at my nose, so hopefully it's pretty good. But we have this lovely webcam here, and I'll look here, so there you go. And most of your more updated machines, and this one has an integrated cam it's already built into the system, will have some sort of shutter that will shut it off, that cam, but the light's still on up here, and what's still recording, or what's still potentially on? The voice. So if you're talking to someone on the phone and you're talking about sensitive information, or you say, oh, let me give you that password for that, and it's somebody you trust, but somebody else is listening. So make sure if you are able to disconnect your webcam, in most cases, it's just a matter of pulling it out of the back of your computer when you're not using it. If you're using it, plug it back in, it starts back up, you shouldn't have any problems. But when you're not using it, just unplug it. If you're using a laptop, turn it back on because I'll forget. Sorry for those of you at home. If you're using a laptop, I'm going to give you all, we have these nice little men here that it's a little cozy man. You actually will sit over the edge of your laptop. So you can actually clean your screen with your hand, or you can cover your laptop screen. So
No, you can say my dog like that. Luke is the safest and run off. Luke will love this.
I take no responsibility for pets that need this.
Luke is going to love this. I had somebody gave me a butter pen and they could say
And I'm sorry for you at home, I can't send you a virtual one, but if I could, I would. But the thing about it is with your webcams, this is something, if you notice any of your Silicon Valley big head tech people, if you see any photos of them in their offices, you'll notice there's pieces of paper or Post-it notes over their webcam. Because it's common practice, unfortunately, for technology espionage to hack these webcams. We've had any kind of camera that's internet connected can be hacked, which includes, unfortunately, anything. We just installed 2 doorbell cams at the house, and my husband was going through and setting those up, and I told him, I said, you realize anybody can hack those, right? He said, no, these are extra special. They have all this, security. And I'm like, okay, I believe you. It's with the right set of skills and the right opportunity, there is no such thing as a complete 100% safe online experience. But we can be smart so we can minimize our risk. We have had reports of nanny cams being hacked that were wireless. And I saw one report that was really, really scary, was that someone had all their cameras connected to Alexa, and Alexa was somehow picking up certain commands to record, and it was recording and sending it out. And it was a flaw in the system. It wasn't a hack, it was just a flaw in the system that thankfully they caught pretty quickly, because they sent out a really strange message to their colleagues at work. And unfortunately, the strange message included some information about the colleagues that they didn't really want shared. I'm not sure they still work there. I'm just probably gonna side on that side that they probably don't work there anymore. But the long and short of it is you may be sharing more than you really intend to. So just to be on the safe side, all webcams have a little light that tells you when they're on. So if your webcam's on, and even on your phone, sometimes you'll see it, And your phone cameras are the same way. Unfortunately, you can't disconnect your phone cams, but you have the ability when it pops up and says, do you want to enable your camera or not? You can say yes or no. And you can always go into your settings and disable your camera or only have it come on when the app is in use. So those are things that you can do to help you avoid that. Don't share more than what's necessary. Now in this day and age, what is necessary is in question. If you follow me on social media, I'm going to just give you a little disclaimer. It's going to be a lot of dogs. It's going to be a lot of food and a lot of ed tech because I have apparently nothing else going on right now. But I just, when I'm someplace and I want to share, I do a lot because I manage our social media accounts for CTE. So I'm always sharing for there. I also manage a couple other organizations' accounts. So I'm always sharing things when I'm at events or when I find something cool I think people would enjoy. And then for me, I have 2 giant bull mastiffs that are just, my babies, and they're just adorable. So why not? And I do have, it's funny because I have a little following. It's actually former colleagues that I used to teach kindergarten with that have followed it over the years, and they're like, you haven't seen a picture of the dogs lately. Are they okay? So if I don't check in, the dogs fans get worried. So I have to be careful. But so be sure that you're checking your privacy settings and do this regularly, because with updates, sometimes user agreements can change and you can be sharing things you didn't think about. Like for instance, on Facebook, I don't want to know about it, but your faces will tell me probably. How many of you have public accounts versus private accounts? Do you share with everybody on the public, or do you share with just people that you're friends with? Okay, yeah, okay. That's your best way. You can, did you know that you can adjust those privacy settings so that your family can see things that your friends can, or your friends can see things your family can't? Depends on how you're, I'm not going to get into your family relationships or anything, but. Yeah.
My daughter, instead of talking, and said, "Who did something to you?" I said, "I didn't say no." But she automatically thought somebody did something.
Well, would you like to see that? Okay. I'm just going to sit down here. So those of you who are on there, you're probably, I don't know what you're going to see, but anyway, I'm going to just slide out here and I'm going to try to log into my Facebook account, and I apologize if you see anything you didn't need to see, because not all my friends are as PG as I am. Oh, that's not. This is what. Do I remember how to log into it? Okay, never mind.
Let me ask you this. I downloaded an app. And that's on my Facebook.
Is that cheaper?
It is finger, I think.
Yes.
Fingerprint activates. In other words, somebody, I can use my other fingerprint.
Yes.
Are they, how protected is that?
They can.
I question that.
They can be hacked because our fingerprints can be lifted, but it's unlikely. It's a very unlikely thing to happen. And I have about all my accounts fingerprint logged.
Yeah.
It's a pain when you're trying to share that with somebody else. All right, so let's see. For instance, we go to.
Because I had a password on my phone and fingerprint. My phone up, somebody said I was drug dealer. Drug dealers are smart people, unfortunately, because that's the reason they're still drug dealing. This is going to be the worst recording right here. I'm really embarrassed about what people are going to record here. Okay. So if I go to my photos, you guys see I've got, so it really is, it's cute kids and dogs and Sir Ken Robinson. So rest his soul. So if I go to my photos, for instance, and I go here, this is one I just put in here, I can edit this photo. So here I can edit location, and that's where a lot of people get in trouble. They have when they take a photo on their phone, they have the geolocation services enabled, and it will tag their phone, their picture, where it was taken. So if you're posting something, hey, I'm in Cabo enjoying a great vacation, and I posted it and it's giving me the time stamp, the location, and it's there when they can see the, so when I edit location here, I can tell it where it is. Then, yeah, but by the time you get home from Cabo, you might not have a household, you know? So, you know, how that happens. So these are places, apparently it also picks up, so a lot of times with my phone system, unfortunately, well, or fortunately for me, my phone will track in different locations depending on where it's pinging off of. So like right now it's asking, because I guess the higher ed center's internet connection is connected with Charlottesville, it will ping there. So it's actually put me there, which actually is not a bad thing, but you can tag things where you want them, but you can also edit the dates. I don't post anything if I'm gone for a length of time. I don't post any pictures until I get back. And I have a friend who traveled a lot for work, and her husband was home a lot of the times, but she had unfortunately it was a family member, extended family member, who knew she was gone by her pictures on Facebook, and caught at a time when her husband wasn't home and came in and wiped her out. And thankfully they caught that and got her things, most of her things back. But you can when you're uploading a picture, let's see, you can, let me see if I can do here. I can only do this when I'm not in front of people, apparently. I'm gonna leave here. So if I'm gonna add a picture, let's just add a picture here. So we can add one. And I don't know what's on this computer, so there may not be anything on here that I can actually add. Let's say pictures. Okay. Let's see if I can. Oh, there's some, I don't know what this is, but I'm gonna upload it. Oh, a nice picture, somebody else's picture there. I can edit that picture, but right here is where you set those privacy settings. So if it's public, your friends, if you've got a friend you're really not talking to right now, you can do all your friends except for this one.
If you want to still on Facebook stalking, but not
yeah. You might have specific friends that you have shared with pictures with before. So I had a group that I shared. We took pictures at a Christmas party, and I shared it with all the parents of that party, so they would have them. So I may have some specific friends. And for some reason, sometimes people just like to have pictures on here that they can just keep for themselves. You know, and you can.
When you go to somebody's profile.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
That means that you're either not on their friends list, or that you're on the exception list, or they have,
or it's like an online.
or a custom list.
I still have my wedding pictures up. Oh, don't feel bad. I got but I still wanted to keep those pictures, and they only exist on Facebook. So I put them on home. I don't want to see my wedding pictures.
So you can also do some editing here, and you can tag photos with other people. And sometimes you can, I have had that. So you can actually set it so other people can't tag you in photos. I had a couple of friends who were just, I don't know if it was a bet that they had going to see who could post the worst photo of me online, but they have some doozies. I mean, when you go to the photos of Heather, you just don't know what you're going to find out. And most of the time it involved absolutely no makeup. And most of the time I looked like, I'm not a drinker, but man, I looked like I was online. I looked rough. And they found those, they would always snap one, surprise me with pictures and snap one. And every time I would notice, and I'd be tagged in it. And once you're tagged in it, anybody who follows you gets a notification. Hey, there's a new upload picture of Heather. Come look. And what does everybody do? Well, let's see. And they click there. And then all of a sudden your bad pictures are everywhere. So you can go into your privacy settings, and you can actually go in and change a lot in your privacy settings. And you can they actually have a privacy checkup that kind of goes over what your current settings are and what the recommended settings are. So I would encourage you guys to take some time and look at that and make sure it's what you want. Because if you're posting things, if this is a business page, I want to make sure everything is public. My page, I don't really want to share with everybody in the world. But I also have other pages that I manage. Our Center for Teaching Excellence page, everything on here is public. So I have everything there. So and I keep track, and there's all sorts of different things I can do here as well. So if I'm using Facebook to promote or use it as a business, then I want to have those things open. And I want to have, the other thing is people being careful about that information. Like I said, going back to what we're talking about, sharing things that are necessary. Personal information, finding out where you are, your location. If it's my private social media pages, I probably don't want to put my physical address out there. If it's my business location, then I for sure want you to know where to find us and how to get to our shop or whatever, to our building. But for my personal page, I want to make sure that I don't put that out there, because even if I have it blocked, sometimes friends of friends, and I have some friends who aren't they're not as choosy about who they accept as friends online. So sometimes I noticed I had to be careful, but sometimes because they would be friends with people, and I'm like, who are they? I don't know. Somebody who sent me a request. Like, you don't have to approve everybody that requests you. It's not like a rule or anything. I mean, you're not going to get a demerit. Yeah, but yeah. And so I asked someone, and of course, I'll be honest, I have quite a few friends on Facebook that I have to think about. Okay, oh yeah, I know that person from that. But again, Facebook, people know what they're getting when they get me. Dogs, food, and ed tech. That's all you get. And babies. You all saw that. So babies. So not my babies, other people's babies. They're the best kind of babies, at least right now for me. So anyway, personal information, unfortunately, intimate messaging. That sounded really awful, didn't it? I'm sorry, y'all. Don't want to offend anybody. But unfortunately, we live in an electronic age where people are dating and living online. And so we are texting back and forth. It's not just your teenagers anymore. Ourtime.com has skyrocketed. Their user base is huge. I mean, I'm not on there, by the way. I'm happily married. But I'm just saying that people of all ages are participating more and more. Intimate messages, pictures even. I did a short stint in online dating many moons ago. And it was eye-opening. I often said I was going to write a book about it, because you couldn't make these stories up. Like, seriously, we had a board at my office that had like nicknames for who I went out with, what they were most likely to go to prison for. Only one of them went to prison that I know of. Okay, one of them worked at one, but the only one of them went to prison. It was a mild stay. It was a little bit of embezzling. It was after we went out one time. Anyway, talk to me later. I'll tell you about it. It's a hilarious story. Anything that has the potential to come back and embarrass you later, because here's the thing about relationships: they're either really good or they're really bad. Very few people have those kind of, they're okay. How you feel about that person? They're okay. Most time you're like, yeah, it's a good friend of mine, or it's my mortal enemy. And unfortunately, and really good friends, even people that that you love, can sometimes turn into those people that don't love you anymore. And so using information to hurt you has become a very popular form of harassment. If you don't do this, I'm going to send this to so-and-so, or whatever. Those are things it goes back to that harassment slide I talked about. So be sure that you're not sharing more than necessary. Don't send anybody any pictures that you wouldn't post yourself. Just going to tell you. It's like someone asked me one time for something I wasn't comfortable sending. And I said, do people send those to you? And they're like, yeah. Every time I ask, I'm like, I don't believe that. He's like, yep, everybody but you. I'm thinking, that's a lie. But he has had it happen enough times that he asked for that. And I thought, there's people who are willing to send things, and I'm thinking, not me, George. No. Yeah, I don't want to see any. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you. I don't want you to send me. So there you go. So don't share more than necessary.
You don't have to ask for it. They really.
So reveal only as much as needed, because it goes back to the other kind of things. But this is talking about things like your whereabouts. Now, there's a couple of apps, and I'm trying to think right off the name of one of the latest ones. One of the meme, or one of the it looks like Bitmoji, but it's one of the emoji apps that you set up your little avatar person and you connect with people online. But it will pinpoint you within 50 yards wherever you are. Whenever you ping on a network, if I come close to a network and it picks up, it'll ping you there, and that's my location's pinned there. Sure.
They check in. Is that what you call
You can, some of those apps are the same thing. They go in and check in.
You want to check in and let people know exactly where you are at the time.
Well, there's
Influencers, that's what they do.
there's some people that use it for influence, and businesses want you to check in for promotional reasons. So they'll lure you in. Hey, here's a free appetizer if you check in today. If you give us a social media and you tag us, then we'll give you a free appetizer. The apps will do it all the time. The apps will say that you do that. But what happens is you end up inadvertently sending out people. And again, people will sometimes will create fake profiles of people that you think you know, and they'll be watching where you are. It could be to wait for you to be away from home, or it could be to stalk you wherever you go. I mean, unfortunately, that happens. Disabling the geotagging on your camera, you just have to go into your camera settings and you can disable the geotag, because every time you take a picture, it tags the geotag location, and you can put it on the map, on the coordinates. It's right on wherever it's tagged at. And only enable it when you require it. And the location services are important for certain apps. Like if you're talking about maps, for instance, you can't use your map unless you have the geo services enabled. But you can set it in that app to only use it when you turn it on. So when I turn it off, it stops using the location services. Weather apps do the same thing. They all want you to use location services, and that's so they can pinpoint the most accurate information to you. Those things are important. Those things are good and helpful. But we want to make sure that when we don't want to share information, that we're not sharing it. So that making sure we don't have those geotagging, because when you take a picture and save it, anywhere you upload it to, it uploads the geotags too. Unless you turn off that part. Yeah. All right. So don't meet online acquaintances alone. And that includes, I'm not talking really about, if we kind of have talked about a little bit about online dating, and that wasn't what I meant to talk about, but we kind of segued to there. It was kind of natural in the conversation, I guess. But I had a friend who met another friend who was, they just met over and they kind of bonded over a shared hobby. And next thing I know, that person went to another state to meet them. And I'm like, are you going by yourself? You don't know this person. You don't know this, it's like, are you kidding me? And they had talked enough with this person online. They felt comfortable to meet them. And online relationships can feel as intimate, as close as your face-to-face relationships, because you can talk to some people more online than you do to people that you know face-to-face. And that doesn't degrade that friendship at all, but we have to make sure we know who we're talking to. If you're using video chats, you can kind of get a feel for who somebody is, where their location is, kind of. It doesn't always prove fail-safe, but you can kind of see it. But in text communications, you just don't really know who you're talking to. But this also extends to marketplace. So if you're selling goods online, or you got a yard sale site up, and you're going to get rid of some things out of the closet, and so says, I'm going to buy that waffle maker off of you. I'm going to meet you. Give me your address. I'll come to your house. No. Please don't do that. I'm going to be over my job. Everything closes over here. I work over here at the public library, and everything closes, and nobody will be there. Just come at closing time, and I'll meet you up front. No, don't do that either. Find some place that's well lit, well traveled. There's a lot of towns that are setting up marketplace location drop-offs, like in front of the police station, or in front at the hospital, or at the Walmart, or someplace that's really well traveled. It's a safe place under a light, where there's a lot of people usually there. And then most of the time, those places have cameras to make sure that you're not physically harmed, or you're ripped off, or whatever. All right, so making sure you have antivirus software. So we talked a lot about physical threats and people taking information, but there are lots of things that can cause destruction to your computer, and can cause you a lot of headaches with malfunctioning computers and phones. And we have to think about mobile phones and tablets are all included in the device list. So we used to just think about antivirus software on our computers, but you need to also make sure your phone has it, your tablets have it, so that you have, there's a lot of them that will provide support across the platforms. So I use AVG free at home. A lot of the places use it. It's easy to download. There's Norton antivirus that comes a lot with some of the things you purchase. There's tons of different ones that you can get, and they're all fairly similar in how they communicate and how they protect your device. But you want to also make sure that you're running those, and that even if you do have I know for years Macs have sold you the idea that Macs don't get viruses, and Macs or Apple products don't get viruses. Well, they can. It's less likely than a PC or an Android, but it is still possible. So you want to be sure that you're using the protection that's built in there too. And install, again, reliable security cameras on all your devices. Don't leave out your, because again, you're accessing most of the internet as much with your phone these days as you are probably with your computer. So be sure that you're covered on both sides, because you're logging into the same websites, your same apps most of the time on your computer and your phone. And if one's protected and one's not, especially with phones, this is something that's scary to me, because there's so much that you can get wireless, because we use Bluetooth, we use all kinds of information from our phones that they can actually pull from and not even be looking at your phone. They can pull it from different devices. So be sure that you have those antivirus software so that you can be sure that you're protected, and make sure that you run those often, that you have scans that are set on auto to run a certain time. I have mine set in the middle of the night. It just comes on and runs my security scans, and it will quarantine anything that it sees that's not right. Keeping all your devices updated, and that includes your web browsers. If you're using Chrome, Google Chrome requires an update periodically. Most of your web browsers do. Your computer systems require updates. I know Apple sends one out every so often. Make sure you're doing that, because not only are they trying to fix bugs that are malfunctioning pieces of software, they also learn about potential threats, and most of the time they include security updates. That's what those updates do. So make sure that you're keeping your phones and your tablets and your devices all updated, and kind of if you have to set a reminder to do it, because a lot of times they'll remind you. You'll get the little reminder that pops up, and it's kind of annoying sometimes, but take the time to do it. Read the fine print. Now, this one's not as, how many of you have logged into a website, it had a bunch of legal jargon and said, click here to agree, and you went click and you agree, and you went on to about your day. Did you know what was in that agreement? No, nobody does. I don't think anybody but an attorney ever read those. Like, even people who wrote them were probably fell asleep halfway through. But the fact is, some attorney for that business or that service did read it and did make sure they protected the company. And within the laws, they protected you within reason. Not always do those things tip your way. And for, again, if the corporation pays my salary, I'm probably going to tip the things. The advantage is always going to be towards the company. And now this is I'm gonna pull an example from 1,000,000 years ago, when the internet was I guess the internet we know as today was kind of becoming a thing. It was, the MySpace days. MySpace was an interesting place because the fine print. MySpace became a haven for artists, for musicians, for all sorts of creative people, because it was just a very vivid, very expressive medium, because you had your playlist going, you had all these things. But in the fine print, it was owned by a publishing conglomerate. And in the fine print, you gave up some control of your material. And many artists got the short end of the stick on that one. Those artists that made it big had to end up coming back and publishing the rights to their own music, or their publishing companies had to pay rights or royalties to the conglomerate that owned MySpace at the time, for a lot of that. And it was in that user agreement that everybody just blew right past and didn't look at. Yours truly included, but I wasn't putting any music on there. I think I was really just, my background was just really pretty, and so that's really all I was doing. Yeah, it's the price to play. It's you're abiding. They're keeping themselves clear legally about what the content are, and they're being upfront with you. If you want to use this service, and that's what they are, online, social media is services. If you want to use this service, these are the rules. These are the conditions. then you just don't, you find another service. Now, there's other apps. I mean, we kind of focus on the main, social media apps, Facebook, Twitter, those kinds of things. But there are for every one of those, there's probably 10 more people around the world are using, So you got to make sure that you just understand the risk involved. All right, so again, and that's points us right to this one here. There's no such thing as a freebie. If you're using if you download that free game, you may in fact download some spyware software. Now, not all spyware software is malicious, although spyware can be malicious and can be spying on you for passwords and all of that kind of information, or your browser history, where you're shopping online. This is what spyware typically does. It's just collect data about where you're shopping so that it can send you ads. You click on one ad on Facebook, or you could click on it over on another app, and then before you know it, Facebook and all your social media apps are full of those ads. And that's how that happens. And that's the price to play. That's, I'm going to use this service knowing that I'm going to give up a little bit of privacy here. That's basically how that works. But as long as you're smart about it and you understand what to share and what not to share, then you should be okay. Because most of the spyware, the things like that, that social media companies sell information, it's just behavior. It's not anything identifiable to you. It's just behavior. This user who happens to be in this demographic likes to shop at this store. That's pretty much all it is. And what companies do with that is just target ads to you. What marketing companies do, they purchase that information and they tailor ads for you. But unfortunately, you do have people who create games and offers and deals that you click on, pop-up ads that can pop up when you go to a website that's not a not verified website, that can, when you click on it, you think you're clicking there to turn it off, or you think you're clicking to do something else, and it's really downloading something to your computer. And that could be a very malicious virus that could potentially wipe out your computer, or it could just be mining your data, because there's some viruses that will just meticulously go through and search files for social security numbers, for tax ID numbers, for date of birth, and anything that they can put together as a profile to sell for somebody for identity theft. And every site, if you notice now, about every site you go to, there's always this little pop-up that says that this site uses cookies. And that was part of a law that passed a few years ago that basically made any retailer, any online site that tracked with cookies. And cookies basically is just it's a tracking app that will track your moves on a site. It's basically what I'm talking about. It's not necessarily spyware, but if you're trying to compare the two, it kind of works similarly because it's just monitoring where you're going. It's the same thing that when I go to an app or a place I've been and I've logged in, say, to my email, when I come back to that site, my username is still in the box. That's what a cookie does. It keeps that information. So the next time I visit, it makes it easier for me to just log right back in. But all sites now by law have to tell you now when cookies are used, because that's part of that law. It's federal law that does that. If you're dealing with another country, so if you're at a website that's .au, whatever the different .ca, any of those other country codes, yes, ma'am. Thumbs up. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm going to send you guys this. I'm going to send this to Penny, and she's going to give it to you because we didn't get to cover phishing. I knew I was going to. But I'm going to give you my email address. If you have any questions, it's haskea@uvays.edu. I'll answer anything. Once you've been in a presentation with me, I'll always answer any question you have about anything. I'll make it up if I don't know it, but I'll probably tell you what's the truth. But thank you.